AI, ChatGPT, all the things.
Oh, all the things, that's a thing, isn't it now? Okay. Yeah. All the things, generative AI. Why not? Let's have a conversation.
So recently you had the opportunity to talk to, well, I think people in their doctorate. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I had the opportunity, it was a privilege to talk to, I believe, well, it was a group of students in the doctorate program at Cal State University. And and the course is on human resources. We talked a little bit about the effects of generative AI from that perspective and how that impact, but we went into some other things. So yes, all things generative AI, specifically open AI, but I did introduce some other forms of generative AI. So absolutely, it was a fun conversation.
So let's go with, some of us are, we've gone through college, we've gone through the master's degree, you have a doctorate, but we also have the next generation. We have kids in elementary school, we have kids in high school, we have business entrepreneurs, or maybe there are people that just didn't do higher level education. And when you and I were having the conversation around what you were kind of teaching or going over when you were having the conversation with those that are in the doctorate program, it was around, I'm telling the next generation or my students to not use AI, and I tell them why. But then you actually had the question. You said you listened, and then you challenged the people in the room to say, well, if you're telling them not to use something, have you thought about why you should tell them how to use it and integrating it into their learning?
Yeah.
Talk about
So
that a little bit.
okay, so this doctorate program has all levels, meaning you have professors in this, so K-12, teachers, principals, counselors, and I might be adding to this particular cohort of doctorate students, but also higher ed teachers and professors. And also there was one person that I was very intrigued with because it reminded me of you, is a social media marketer for a school district. So really
Ooh.
understands, right? I know. I was like, oh, I need to hook the two of you up because the conversation you could have. But one of the questions about generative AI was, well, I know that, and because I don't really want to out anybody, but these are questions that Yale students at Yale have asked, or professors, UCLA, Berkeley, Harvard, and other universities around the country. And they are on YouTube talking about it. And even in K-12, because K-12 students aren't really using it because OpenAI says wait until they're 18, or if your school district does it, make sure that you have a scope and sequence, meaning like a policy, how they're going to use it, or they shouldn't use
So
it.
what's the question? You said
Well,
they
let me
they
get
asked the
there.
question.
Yeah. So the question was, or not even the question, it was, I have students cheating. I know they're cheating because I read this paper, but a couple of weeks before, that's not how they were writing, but they turned it in and it was exemplary. And I don't even have people I work with that write this well. But how do you challenge that? And I just was like, well, I'm not in my mind. I didn't necessarily say this. I would have challenged it and showed them, like, tell me how you got here. Like, this is impressive. And then can you tell me a little bit about your paper? But when they can't do that, then you have like, oh, but how do you don't want to be too accusatory. So what I said was, well, we'll back up and say, well, why aren't we teaching the students about plagiarism? I mean, I'm sure the college professors are like they talk about plagiarism, but because generative AI is going so fast, it's like we need to teach them not just about how to use generative AI or not to use it, because they're going to use it at home. So talking to them about what is plagiarism with generative AI, because you have coders that create generative AI. They're all of their information in their heads go into this coding, all the information on the internet, all of the mainframes that they're pulling from, that's somebody else's knowledge. So if you have any generative AI do the paper for you, it's not your work. It really is not your work. It's everybody else's work. And if you don't give them credit, then it's plagiarism. It's
So
plagiarism.
So you okay? So if I were let's say I'm the professor. Now I am a professor. It's just the
Yeah, at
course needs
higher
to
ed.
be updated, right? But I also teach real estate agents. I also record and I have my own content. I even every
Yeah, but
Friday go
don't
live
make it
on
like
Instagram.
you wrote a course for a university. So like, yeah.
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is I back to Coffee with Carrie. So every Friday I go live and I don't use artificial intelligence. And I'm going to say kind of. So every Friday I have a topic that I talk about on Instagram, focused or geared towards the real estate professional. And I sit and I open up Evernote and I have my title of what I'm going to talk about typically like by Monday. So this Monday I'll come up with what I'm going to talk about on Friday, and I write out everything I'm going to talk about from
Right.
the story because I start with a story, and then I ask a question, and then I have my tips, a list, and then I have my my takeaways and what you should do next. And then what I do is I take what I wrote
Okay.
and I will dump it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to write a blog post with my Evernote note that I wrote, and I ask it to create the blog post. I also ask it to create a YouTube summary, etc., or even the summary for my post when I repost. So I took my own information and I'm using ChatGPT to make it better. Is that a good way to tell whether it's a real estate agent or a student or someone that's trying to write to consider using tools like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, etc.?
Well, if it's a blog, if it's helping you become more organized, it's editing like a sentence or two, and you put all your content in it, absolutely. But if it's a research class and you had ChatGPT do it, that's plagiarism because you're saying this is my work, but ChatGPT did it. I mean, and you can say I had generative AI support and help me. If it wrote a blog for you and you didn't already write the blog, generative AI took all your content, put it in order, and wrote a blog. I
Mm-hmm.
will say that the generative AI did pull from other sources to write that blog. So giving saying generative AI supported me and organized it is okay. It's also okay to put that out there because you're not saying you're doing research. You're saying these were the tips that I did. This is based on what my work already, and that's okay. However, it becomes plagiarism if you're saying it's your own work and you did nothing to support it. And I mean, nothing. And what I told the students in the class, I said, I actually am glad that I wrote my dissertation before generative AI was available. And only because you can't accuse me of using generative AI to write this my dissertation. And
Mm-hmm.
my hope is that no one else would be accused, meaning write your own work, and it's okay to have someone edit. And generative AI can edit a paragraph or two as long as they keep it in your voice. I had someone edit my dissertation. I mean, somebody looked at it, it was a human. Generative AI is coded by humans, so they could edit, but what you don't want it to do is take away from your voice, especially when you are in a research situation and you want to post it as your own. There's a difference. And even on Amazon self-publishing, it says right on there, like, is this your work or did AI write this? And you can publish a book that AI wrote completely because there's content out in the world that's known. You're just reorganizing it to help other people. But that's okay. Now, some people would frown against that because they believe that you are not going to build your brain cells and you're not going to problem solve anymore and it's going to make you stupid. But I don't know that I agree with that because I think it's making me smarter because I am able to ask it, like, well, why did you do it that way in this language, in this format? So I mean, all of it, it can be overwhelming, but you have to start somewhere. And whether you're in the business world, you are a real estate agent, an educator, you are an entrepreneur, you're going to get left behind if you don't start learning about it because the younger generation is going to use it. And they're using it because I have evidence of it. Now, I mean, especially in these classrooms. So, I mean, what are your thoughts?
You know, In the real estate space, I would say whether you're a business owner, whether you're a real estate agent, you need to really understand because the consumer is going to use it. So, like everything that you were just saying is if we don't teach the next generation why you should understand it, how you can use it to be better, we are allowing someone else to think for us. And I am all for, I can't even, is it Chomley? He's a newscaster. He's a writer, and he actually did an entire YouTube series on the importance of being a thinker. So I think it's great that what you're saying is we should teach it. We should show you the what, why, and the how. So the student, the real estate agent, the broker owner, the entrepreneur can still think in their own voice, but then have content that can be edited. Because full disclosure, loved high school. I was going to be a famous fashion designer, but hated English. And I could not get my thoughts on paper well. So I would definitely say the sky's the limit with ChatGPT. So if had I had ChatGPT and Audible, I think I would have been a better student because I did focusing on reading a book was not great. Writing down what I needed to talk about, I have to fight to get everything in an organized format to the point where I think that when I started teaching adults, it made me a better person, learner, writer, because now I had to disseminate what I was saying to someone else in a format that would make them take action.
Okay, so I'm gonna go academic a little bit for you. And I talked about this with the students yesterday. We have you just talked about learning and the loving high school and writing being this like, oh my gosh, the struggle bus. I'm gonna give you some hidden truths about writing. Everybody's on that same bus because your brain is like this super dump of all, it takes pictures all day long and it's listening and it's taking in all this information and content, and you have to now put it into, I'll use some business term, a funnel, and pull out what you need that works. And what I realized in my master's program, I had these great professors. I'm actually going to say her name because she was the professor that I did a guest lecture and collaboration with these students. It's Dr. Angela Luke. She wrote lots of books and articles, and I mean, she was actually a principal. She's now a professor at Cal State. And the research class that I had with her in my master's program, and the classes I had, actually I had her also in the doctorate program, and some other professors that were magnificent. What they said is, if we get in the way of our own writing because we think the first time we write it, it's supposed to be perfect. And there are books on that. And we do that to our young children.
Mm.
We do that to high school kids and adults. And then we make them feel bad because we write all over it in red ink or organize it and tell them how bad it is and
Bad
saying,
faces, red
yes.
pen.
Oh, I never used red pens when I graded. I used purple, and I would talk about all the great things and then what they could work on. Because I did research writing in eighth grade science. My point is that there is this idea that we have to be perfect the first time, and I edited and reconfigured, and I'm trying to shy away from saying rewrote my dissertation because I didn't rewrite it. I just kept going back and go, oh no, I need to fix this and restructure this. That's what I should say, restructure. And probably 100 or more times. And one of our professors, who is a great writer, she said, you think that I was a great writer the first time I wrote that article? You know how many times I had to revamp, restructure, all of that? Like, that's, you get to see the finished work. So it gives me my brilliance. But my brilliance meant I had to critically think, problem solve, productive struggle bus to get there. So believe it or not, you are a better writer than you think because you're asking the right questions and you are pulling that together. I think we have this myth that we're not good writers because we don't do it right the first time. And I'm going to say, as educators, there are educators and parents, we're all guilty of it because we're like, oh my gosh, it's not good. It's not good because it's their first time trying it. Like, You are first at anything. The first time I worked at Nordstrom, the first time I worked at whatever company, the first time I was a teacher, first time I started this job. Nobody is good at something until they, well, I'm going to deem as practice. Doctors always practice. Basketball players always practice. So why don't we look at students the same way, or real estate agents? So when I said I want to go a little academic, here it is. We have the child learner. We call it pedagogy. Pedo meaning like the child, like they are the child learner, like the art of learning. And we have andragogy, the adult learner. I'm going to throw this word in here that even the students, they tilted their heads when I said it. It's called Heutagogy. Hudagogy. It's the study of self-determined learning. And that is that critical thinking you just talked about. And that is what generative AI has given people. Google has done it, YouTube has done it. It's the self learner that's like, you know what? I need to put this Ring camera in. I just got it in the mail and I have someone helping me, and they have instructions that we couldn't follow. So we went to YouTube and figured it out. The self determined learner. That is our goal. And when I read that, I was like, okay, that's where we are with generative AI. We are becoming, we we want everyone to be self-determined, motivated learners, but we do that by going to classes like your classes or the lives. That's why people have so much access on social media, because they can go find out by somebody. Like, come on, you get your news from TikTok now, right?
So they
You get
do. So right. So
so
let me ask this question, and so we can, keep having these discussions on the podcast or on YouTube. What are your takeaways from everything you just learned, or what would be like one or two things you would tell anyone from the self-determined learner?
I would take a step back, start somewhere, and specifically learn about generative AI. The term artificial intelligence is your iPhone. You go to Google. I have my Ring doorbell. It tells me someone's at my door, or my thermostat in my house. That's all artificial intelligence. The generative artificial intelligence is something helping you generate something so that you can be more proficient, efficient, critically think, and problem solve. So if you do nothing else, start learning about what it is and play with it. Like, go to my YouTube channel, MJ Blazy, go to your YouTube channel, Carrie J. Little, and have your own time to learn. And you could sit there all day, but structure it where it's like an hour and go back to it. That's a whole nother day on what that means on learning. But that's what I would tell people is stop trying to go against it fully. Yes, we should be cautious about anything. I mean, literally too much water can drown you. Just drinking it, too much of anything can be bad for you. But if we don't learn about it, we will get left behind. Definitely.
And my tip would be, what I got out of it is if you are not the person teaching it, they're going to learn it from somewhere else, because we
Yep.
have access to just about everything. So I am Carrie Little, the designated managing broker of Caremark Realty Group in Illinois and Florida. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Carrie Joe Little, and Carrie Joe Little everywhere on Instagram and on TikTok.
And of course, do the same for me everywhere. I'm Mina J. Blazy, except for YouTube. I am MJ Blazy, and we appreciate you so much. Come back often and listen to the podcast and comment. Tell us what you think.